Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for To Your Eternity, Chapter 141. When we last left our heroes, Fushi had confronted Izumi and Mizuha with plans to kill the knocker inside of Izumi, and it nearly went for it. He spread his roots inside of Izumi's body and, threatened to fill her with, molten metal. But Mizuha's desperate pleas about how the Izumi Knocker was a much better mother than her original mother had ever been, and seeing how the Knocker clearly experienced pain, and Fushi felt that pain because he feels people's pain, led Fushi to be unable to actually kill Izumi. And I have some theories on whether or not this specific sort of thematic moral setup is sort of a play by the Guardian Knocker to stop Fushi from interfering with their whole kill suicidal people plan, which again is a choice. But let's leave that be as we go into chapter 141, Their Home, Part 1. And we open without even really a cover page, just on Fushi kind of flashing back to the night before. She felt pain, cried, protected her daughter, lied. Specifically with Izumi saying it doesn't hurt about the roots. And then he flashes back to her, tear-stricken face. And Fushi just sort of glumly says, she really is, just like a human. And I think that's Yuuki in the bottom corner of that panel. And yeah, it's Yuuki and Bon and Satoru, the Beholder. And Yuuki sort of responds, yeah, sounds like a decent, loving human. Makes it hard to tell who our enemy really is, huh? And Fushi just sort of stares blankly at that, and then turns to Bon. But we'd be better off without knockers, right, Bon? So I remember I saw a Tumblr post that kind of called attention to something I had sort of missed, that really ever since the Mimori Arc, sub-arc, I'm not quite sure how we're delineating arcs in the New World, but back to the Mimori storyline. Ever since then, Fushi has kind of been looking to Bon as the sort of arbiter of right and wrong. We saw that back in 140 Part 1, how he asked Bon, we're supposed to kill the knockers, right? And only when Bon says yes does he go to confront Izumi. And we're seeing it again here. But we'd be better off without knockers, right, Bon? Bon looks down at him. It's only natural to have doubts. You should not regret your inability to kill the knocker inside Izumi-san's body. This isn't about logic. That was perfectly natural. Emotions are what make the world interesting. And Fushi sort of takes that in and looks around. And I guess where they're sitting has a view of just people going about their lives, sitting in restaurants, walking along the street into a building. And he turns to Satoru, guy in black. Can you see anyone here with a knocker inside them? And he points to a man. Him? And Bon asks him, half merged? And Satoru responds, no, fully merged. And Yuuki asks Bon, fully merged? And Bon explains, that's what we call the ones where the human soul is long gone and the knocker is living on in the body. We see some text there. Due to some computer drama, I don't have my scrolling in ability, really. I can do a little bit, actually, but not really enough. But it looks like it says there's the carrier, where it's just hibernating before they've been killed by Mizuha. Half merged, the knocker is awakened and takes over the consciousness sometimes, and fully merged when the knocker has fully taken over. So there's our sort of the language we're using. Anyway, and Fushi just runs down the stairs, and Bon calls, "Stop that, Fushi!" And Bon catches up to him. You better not. There are a lot of people around. And Fushi just sort of is sullen for a minute before responding, but he's an enemy. I might be able to defeat that one. Still not a good time to start slashing people when everyone is around. And Bon kind of responds, don't push yourself. I'm not pushing myself. And Bon sort of lays into him. Remember, the boy in black told us there were too many knockers to count. Even if we wish to wipe them out, we better consider a few more alternatives beforehand. There's no guarantee we'll be able to settle things cleanly like we did with Mimori and Hirotoshi. And so Fushi responds, what kind of alternatives? And Yuuki ever with the sort of more naive response, oh, what if they've got a boss? A big boss organizing the Knockers? I mean, isn't the Guardian Knocker kind of implied to be organizing everyone? Or have I kind of misinterpreted that? I might have just sort of slightly misinterpreted that. Let's find this boss and talk to them. From the heart. We'll forge a peace agreement. I haven't given up on having a heart-to-heart discussion. And Fushi, kind of going back to my earlier point, flashes back to Mizuha, or more specifically, the Guardian Knocker. And Yuuki kind of continues, if only we could find out something from Funa-senpai. Right, Fushi? Oh. And Fushi sort of dully, oh, yeah. And just then, Bon sort of he's kind of like shoos away a passerby. Oh, shoo. Not quite sure what that's supposed to be about. Oh no, I think it's a ghost, because there's a line on a couple panels later about a ghost. And Bon is shooing the ghost, and the passerby gets a little bit confused, because like, why is this weird guy shooing me? Alright, I understand that now. I'm a little dull sometimes. But Yuuki looks at him. What's the matter, Bon-san? Nothing is the matter. And yeah, the passerby just glares at him. What's your problem, pal? But Fushi looks at Bon. A ghost? I'd like to have a more serious conversation. Let's go somewhere else. And so they come to a restaurant, and we see Bon is sort of surrounded by his original ghost duo, Fen and Nixon, and Izumi. Fen, Nixon, and Izumi-san have returned. And we see Fen and Nixon are kind of, behind him, and they're kind of normal position. Izumi is her fae is like sitting in the booth next to Bon. And Fushi looks at him. They're here right now? Then did they find out who the Mimori Knocker was talking about? The day they began their surveillance, Mimori left home after everyone went to bed. Wait, I thought they killed the Mimori Knocker. Is this sometime before the fight with Mimori? And then, because I think they started their surveillance before Mimori fight. And then Funa killed Mimori, and Fushi revived her. Right. So I guess this is just before all that went down, I'm guessing. Anyway, she headed for a manhole. And we see there's this really kind of funny bit of Mimori, like, hooking a hole in the manhole with her pinky and just ripping it up. Turned right, turned left, went up and down, all with Fen and Nixon kind of hiding behind her. In all likelihood, it was underground. A space encased in metal, so that Fushi's branches cannot penetrate it. And we see she enters. There's like this kind of, it looks kind of almost like ritualistic, the building she's in, or the tunnel she's in. I can't quite tell if the floor there is meant to just be like a reflective solid surface, or if it's a liquid. Like she's walking on a like thin film of water over the ground. I'm not quite sure. But we see what looks like going back to my ritualistic comment, almost like a church. Except the wall behind her, so we see there's like a carpet in the middle, and throngs of people on each side of it. It comes up to a little stairway, sort of like the front of a church, and there's three people, a man, what looks like maybe Izumi, and I think that might be Mizuha in a moment of unconscious. I don't recognize the man, though, which would make sense if the Guardian Knocker is the leader of the Knockers, which I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be. But yeah, this looks to be like home base for the Knockers. And the wall behind them, I think kind of skimmed over that, is this sort of spirally, like, wood-looking pattern, which fits the sort of plant vibe they always got from the Knockers in the past, with their roots and shit like that. But anyway, we see Fen and Nixon kind of panicking, as Mimori just sort of, like, calmly smiles and throws the bag she's carrying on the ground, and it's one of Fushi's discarded bodies. I don't quite remember when this scene, when Mimori got Fushi's discarded body. I think it's when they fought on the rooftop before their final battle, I think. I'd have to go back and look at those chapters again. But the Guardian Knocker in Mizuha's form kind of comes over to Fushi and sort of presses her head next to him, maybe checking for a pulse. And then doesn't notice anything because Fushi's not there, and then looks up, and we see these like lights behind Mimori, and Fushi just and no not Fushi, sorry, the Guardian Knocker just sort of grins, maybe grinning at Fen and Nixon, and then what looks to be Izumi's ghost comes up and kind of shushes Fen and Nixon. It seems Izumi-san found this out slightly earlier. She swore Fen and Nixon to secrecy, and they apparently sympathized with her. Her daughter was the leader of the religion controlling the Knockers. If we found out, it would surely lead to a bloodbath. As Mizuha's mother, she wanted to avoid that. But now that Mizuha's Knocker has revealed itself to you, there is no longer any need to hide it. Okay. So yeah, this just which again kind of brings into more questions surrounding all the Izumi drama from last chapter. Is that like, does because Mizuha feels like her mother never cared about her. And to be fair, Izumi was a shitty mom. Trying to live vicariously through her daughter. And that's just like kind of shitty. But we see here, Izumi going to great lengths to kind of protect Mimori. Not Mimori, Mizuha. Sorry, too many me names wrapped up with the Knockers. Also, sorry if you can hear the phone ringing. It'll stop in a second. But anyway, but now that Mizuha's Knockers revealed itself to you, there is no longer any need to hide it. And so Fushi answers, so the person the Mimori Knocker mentioned turned out to be Mizuha after all. The 18th successor of the Guardians. And Bon answers, oh no, this is Fushi still. Looks like that hunch was right. But the one leading the Knockers is the one that lives inside her. Mizuha herself doesn't know a thing. I'm not going to let them get away with using a 14-year-old girl's body like that. I've got to separate her from the Knocker. And Yuuki, who I guess was just kind of unaware of what happened back in 140 and 139 and all of that Guardian Knocker drama, like kind of panics. I can't believe the last boss was inside Mizuha-senpai the whole time. I mean, like, again, we kind of all knew that, didn't we? Or was that just an assumption we all kind of collectively had? But Yuuki says, what might be the worst line in the last few chapters. I'm sure she needs a hero, like Hirotoshi was for Mimori-chan. Okay, I was really hoping we would never have to address Hirotoshi ever again. And I don't think we really have to, so I'm going to continue to ignore all of that. But Fushi just looks at him. Hero? I'm talking about you, Fushi. I hate to admit it. Excuse me. But I don't have the power to save her. But Izumi responds, you don't have to save Mizuha. It's too late for her. And Bon turns to react. Huh? And Fushi sees that. Bon? And Izumi continues, because back there, she chose coexistence with the Knockers. And that's where the chapter ends. This is another one of those, how are we supposed to take this moment? Which is kind of my recurring question of the arc. What are we supposed to be getting out of this? Who are we supposed to believe? Who is right? But anyway, this chapter is really interesting. It sort of opens as just a bit of a kind of taking a step back and like recollecting with our quartet, I guess, if we're counting Satoru. But Satoru doesn't really seem terribly interested in the proceedings. So it's really just Fushi, Yuuki, and Bon. Once again, that sort of Fushi trying to keep his friends in the dark, still sort of hanging in the background, even if it's not directly addressed. It's definitely a thing to watch out for, because it's eventually going to explode in Fushi's face. At this point, I think it's going to be when one of them sees a knocker. But anyway, let's leave that alone for now. We see Fushi. I don't think Fushi is terribly happy with himself for sparing Izumi. He still thinks he should have, like, killed the Knocker. And even if Bond told him at the end of the last chapter that it's fine that he spared Izumi, at least for now, he wants to sort of make it right by getting rid of another Knocker. Which sort of maybe... I'm curious how to mesh that with the sense that Fushi has started to look to Bond, and Bond alone, for moral guidance. That, especially without, the Beholder to tell him things, it's just sort of Bond who can do that. But I don't know. We'll see how all that plays out as all of these various character arcs kind of continues. But the most important thing, though, happens when they move to the restaurant, and Fen and Nixon kind of tell them, or Bond through Fen and Nixon through Bond tells everyone else what they've learned. Specifically, that there was a whole church dedicated to the Knockers. Presumably, these are all or they're so a couple of possible routes. Either all of these people are fully merged Knockers, or they're the Guardians, who have at this point kind of morphed into a pro-Knocker cult, which is an ironic sort of counter to who they were in Kahak's time, as sort of being anti-Knocker and defending Renril from the Knockers, and largely kind of preparing the world for Fushi and the Knockers' return. If these are the Guardians, which again is an assumption and could very well be wrong, they've sort of done a 180 there. And whether that's under Mizuha's leadership, hold on, that man there, is that man... I'd have to go back and check the earlier chapters. Is that man Mizuha's grandfather? Because if so, and I don't think he's been infected with a Knocker, unless that just happened off screen, then this is definitely the Guardians. Right? Which would make sense, but I might be fully wrong as to who that is. Let me see if I can do the TYE wiki is not great, but I'm gonna see if I can quickly find something about her grandfather. Yeah, I'm not finding anything fast, so I'm not sure. I'll have to take another look there. Because if so, these are the Guardians. The Guardians are still around, and they are specifically pro-Knocker now. If not, if he's just some guy who also happens to kind of be leading, like, another high-up Knocker, then he is... Then these are all at least fully merged or half-merged Knockers. Or at least half-merged, if not fully merged Knockers. Either way, let's take a look at this end of page 9, top of page 10, where the Guardian Knocker sort of looks at Fushi, notices it's just kind of a corpse, from what I can tell, and then looks up at, like, she might be looking at Fen and Nixon. It's kind of hard to tell, because the top of page 10 has this sort of, like, creepy grin, and then Fen and Nixon kind of panic. But nothing really comes of that, and the next scene is Izumi telling them to, like, not tell the others about this, which ends up just sort of delaying the reveal about the Guardian Knocker. But anyway, that sort of leads into the chapter's final moments. As, Fushi seems here to be making a very clear distinction between the half and fully merged Knockers. That the fully merged, you just gotta kill them. If their Fae is still around, we can, like, bring them back. But if not, they just gotta die. But here, he's of the opinion that he has to separate her from the Knocker. There's a clear difference between half and fully merged Knockers. But Izumi disagrees. You don't have to save her, it's too late. She chose coexistence. And so, I mean, I wanted to try to kind of theorize where Izumi is going with all this. I think I'll have to wait till next time to really get any ideas. Because when I sort of read last chapter, I read Izumi's crying as, like, I was maybe a bit of realization as to how kind of horrible she was. That, like, she just was not a great mother. And seeing how much Mizuha, didn't like her and preferred the Knocker sort of made her take a look at herself. But maybe I was wrong. Because this might be, you know, instead of inward kind of self-hatred, sort of an outward hatred. Her realizing that, like, her feelings for Mizuha turning from the protection we see in her flashback with Fen and Nixon, to disdain and at least this aloofness she presents in the restaurant. She doesn't care about me, so fuck her kind of vibe. Maybe. We'll see how well that all plays out going forward. But it's all things to keep in mind as we wait for, the back half of this chapter. Even more than most serialized works, TYE, given that it kind of drops us in like half chapters, sort of really makes me kind of struggle with the problems of serialization, that we just don't know everything. And it's hard to know what's coming later and what's just sort of forgotten about. So yeah, we'll sort of look at all of that for next chapter. All in all, a lot to really kind of pick at here, and I can't wait to see where we're going with the story next. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!